Official agency records. Unaltered visual proof. Transparent enforcement. This is Bodycam Incident Reports.
Sir, the manager revoked permission. Stand up and leave. Now.
I'm paid. I'm disabled. I'm waiting for medical transport. I'm not breaking the law.
You're refusing a lawful order.
No, officer. You're confusing authority with the law.
Officer Kyle Vance had been patrolling the streets of Richmond for 6 years when he walked into a Liberty Burger on a sunny Tuesday afternoon and made a decision that would incinerate his career, humiliate his department, and cost the taxpayers of the city $6.5 million. He was 29 years old, built like a linebacker, and possessed that dangerous combination of limited life experience and absolute authority. He walked with his chest puffed out, convinced that his badge granted him the power to dictate reality. On that bright afternoon, the radio crackled with a call from a frustrated manager about a vagrant refusing to leave a booth during the lunch rush. The vagrant in question was Marcus Thorne, a 54-year-old retired Army Master Sergeant, a Silver Star recipient, and a disabled veteran sitting quietly with a cheeseburger and a cane. What Officer Vance did next, ignoring the man's calm demeanor, disregarding the law, and escalating a non-event into a violent arrest, would become a viral case study in how unchecked ego and bias can dismantle a life's work in under 15 minutes. Before we get into the details of this catastrophic failure of judgment, I want to know, where are you folks tuning in from today? If you believe that respect is something earned, not just demanded, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We need to shine a light on these stories because if we don't hold these officials accountable, nobody will. Liberty Burger sits on the busy corner of Broad Street and 3rd Right in the heart of the commercial district. It's a retro-styled joint chrome counters, red vinyl booths, checkerboard floors. It smells of grease and salt, the kind of place where construction workers, bank tellers, and retirees rub elbows for a quick bite. It was 11:45 a.m. The sun was high and bright, casting long shadows through the plate glass windows. The lunch rush was just ramping up. Every booth was full, and the line snake-danced its way to the soda fountain. Officer Kyle Vance parked his cruiser in the red zone, out front lights flashing just enough to draw attention. He checked his reflection in the rearview mirror, adjusted his sunglasses, and stepped out. Vance had a reputation in the precinct. His sergeant called him proactive. His peers called him a hothead. The community just called him trouble. He had a philosophy that he shared loudly in the locker room. You give them an inch, they take the city. You have to dominate the space. He wasn't walking into Liberty Burger to investigate. He was walking in to enforce. He had already decided the outcome before he even saw the suspect. In his mind, the manager's call was gospel. If a business owner said someone was a problem, they were a problem. He didn't know that the man inside Marcus Thorne had spent more time serving this country than Vance had been alive. He didn't know that Thorne was recovering from his 4th surgery related to an IED blast in Kandahar. He didn't know that the refusal to leave was actually a physical inability to move quickly. Vance pushed through the double glass doors, the bell jingling above him. The noise of the restaurant, the clatter of trays, the hiss of the grill, the murmur of conversation dipped noticeably. People tend to quiet down when a uniform walks in with that specific aggressive stride. Vance scanned the room looking for the target. He saw him. A black man in a faded green field jacket sitting alone in a corner booth staring out the window. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't panhandling. He was just sitting. But to Kyle Vance, a man sitting too long was an affront to order. It was a challenge, and Kyle Vance never backed down from a challenge. Marcus Thorne shifted his weight in the booth, wincing slightly as the edge of the table pressed against his right thigh. Or rather, where his right thigh used to connect to a knee that was no longer there. The prosthetic was high-tech carbon fiber and titanium, a marvel of modern engineering provided by the VA, but today the stump was swollen and angry. The doctors had told him to take it easy to keep weight off it for a few hours after his physical therapy session. He had finished his therapy at the clinic down the street at 11:15 a.m. His paratransit ride, the shuttle service for disabled veterans, wasn't scheduled to pick him up until 12:30 p.m. He had 75 minutes to kill. It was too hot to wait outside on the bench, so he had limped into Liberty Burger, ordered a number 4 with a sweet tea, and sat down to wait. Marcus was 54, but his eyes held the weariness of a man who had lived 3 lifetimes. He had joined the Army at 18 right out of high school in Detroit. He'd done tours in Panama, the Gulf Bosnia, and finally 3 tours in Afghanistan. He had retired as a master sergeant, a man used to commanding respect not by shouting but by competence. He was quiet, dignified, and today he was just tired. He kept his receipts. He always kept his receipts, a habit from years of government paperwork. The receipt for his burger and tea was tucked neatly under the salt shaker. He took a slow sip of his iced tea, watching the traffic on Broad Street. He wasn't bothering a soul. He was dressed simply clean jeans, a button-down shirt under his old field jacket, and a ball cap with a subtle 101st Airborne patch. To anyone paying attention, he looked like exactly what he was, a weary veteran taking a load off. But Brad Miller wasn't paying attention. Brad was the 24-year-old shift manager of Liberty Burger, and he was currently stressed out of his mind. The regional supervisor was coming in later that week, and Brad was obsessed with table turnover. He had a degree in business marketing from a state college and viewed this fast food gig as a temporary stepping stone to corporate greatness. He managed the restaurant like he was trading stocks on Wall Street. Efficiency was God, and loitering was a sin. Brad watched Marcus from behind the counter. In Brad's eyes, Marcus was bad optics. He saw an older black man sitting alone for 30 minutes nursing a single drink after finishing his burger. He didn't see the prosthetic leg hidden under the table. He didn't see the military bearing. He saw a table that wasn't generating revenue. He saw a customer who didn't fit the demographic Brad was trying to cultivate for the lunch rush, which consisted mostly of office workers in suits and ties. "He's still there," Brad muttered to one of the cashiers. "He finished eating 20 minutes ago." "He's just waiting, Brad. He's not bugging anyone," the cashier, a middle-aged woman named Linda, said quietly. "Let him be." "No, we need the table," Brad snapped, wiping his hands on his apron. "It's peak hours. We have a policy. 30 minutes for dining. He's loitering." Brad had approached the table 5 minutes earlier. He hadn't asked if Marcus needed anything. He hadn't asked if he was okay. He had simply walked up and said, "Sir, if you're done eating, I need this table for paying customers." Marcus had looked up, his expression calm. "I am a paying customer, son. I'm waiting for my ride. It'll be here in a bit." "We're not a waiting room," Brad had replied, his voice rising just enough to be performative for the other customers. "You need to move along." "I can't walk very well right now," Marcus had explained, gesturing vaguely to his leg. "I'm just going to finish my tea." Brad took that as defiance. He didn't hear a medical explanation. He heard a refusal to submit to his authority. He walked back to the office, his face red. He wasn't going to argue with a vagrant. That's what the police were for. He picked up the phone. He didn't dial the non-emergency line. He dialed 911. "This is the manager at Liberty Burger on Broad. I have a man here refusing to leave. He's becoming aggressive with staff and disturbing customers. I need an officer now." Aggressive, disturbing, lies, but magic words if you want a swift response. Do you think business managers should be fined for making false reports to police about customers? Drop a yes or no in the comments below. When the call came into dispatch, the operator categorized it as a Priority 3, disorderly conduct / trespass in progress. The notes on the screen read, "Male subject refusing to leave hostile to staff." Officer Kyle Vance saw the call pop up on his terminal. He was only 2 blocks away. He smiled. This was his bread and butter, cleaning up the streets, getting the riffraff out of the business district so the tax-paying citizens could enjoy their lunch. Vance's personnel file was a minefield that the department had been tiptoeing around for years. In his 6 years on the force, he had accumulated 14 complaints. Most were for discourtesy or unprofessional conduct. two were for excessive force. Both force complaints had been unfounded due to lack of camera angles or conflicting witness statements. He was known as a stat patter, an officer who racked up arrests for minor infractions to look productive. Trespassing, loitering, failure to comply. He loved those charges. They were easy. They required no investigation, just an attitude and a pair of handcuffs. His supervisor, Sergeant Miller, no relation to Brad, had warned him just last month. "Vance, you need to dial it back. You're treating citizens like enemy combatants. Talk to people. Don't just bark orders." Vance had nodded, but privately he rolled his eyes. Sergeant Miller was old school, a relic. Miller believed in community policing. Vance believed in enforcement. He thought Miller was soft. As Vance pulled up to the curb, his mind was already drafting the report. Subject was belligerent. Subject refused lawful order. Subject was removed. He didn't consider the possibility that the subject might be a hero. He didn't consider the possibility that the manager was a liar. He operated on a simple heuristic: the caller is the victim. The person being called on is the perpetrator. He walked into the restaurant with that mindset locked and loaded. Inside, Brad, the manager, saw the police cruiser and felt a surge of vindication. "See," he thought, "I run this place." He walked out from behind the counter to meet Officer Vance near the door. "He's over there," Brad said, pointing a finger toward the corner booth. "The guy in the green jacket. He's been here for an hour. I asked him to leave and he said he wasn't going anywhere. He's scaring the customers." Vance looked at the booth. Marcus was looking out the window, his hand resting on a heavy wooden cane that leaned against the table. "Did he threaten you?" Vance asked. He was aggressive verbally." Brad lied, lowering his voice to sound concerned. "He said he wouldn't move for anyone. I think he might be drunk or on something." That was all Vance needed. Intoxicated, aggressive, trespassing. He didn't interview the cashier, Linda, who was shaking her head in disapproval behind the register. He didn't ask the couple at the adjacent table if they felt threatened. He adjusted his belt, hitched up his pants, and marched toward the booth. Marcus heard the heavy boots approaching. The sound was distinct. He knew the cadence of a march, and he knew the cadence of a threat. He turned his head slowly as Vance stopped at the edge of the table, blocking the light from the window. "Problem, officer?" Marcus asked, his voice gravelly but calm. "Yeah, we have a problem," Vance said, crossing his arms. "Manager says you're trespassing. You need to leave, now." "I'm waiting for a ride," Marcus said, tapping the table. "Medical transport. Be here in 40 minutes. "You can wait outside," Vance snapped. "This is private property. Once they ask you to leave, you leave. Let's go." "I can't stand outside in this heat for 40 minutes, son," Marcus said, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I'm a disabled veteran. I bought a meal. I have a right to sit here until I'm finished." "You are finished," Vance said, glancing at the empty wrapper. "Now you're loitering. And don't call me son. Stand up." Marcus took a deep breath. He had faced down Taliban fighters in the Korangal Valley. He had held dying men in his arms. He wasn't going to be intimidated by a 20-something patrolman with a complex. "I'm not standing up until I'm ready," Marcus said firmly. "I haven't broken any laws. If the manager wants to refund my money, I'll consider moving. But until then, I'm a customer." Vance's face flushed. The restaurant had gone silent. Everyone was watching. He felt his authority slipping. He couldn't let that happen. "Let me see some identification," Vance demanded, his voice echoing off the tile walls. "I'm eating my lunch," Marcus replied, leaning back. "You're not eating. You're refusing a lawful order. Give me your ID so I can run you for warrants. Now." "I don't have to give you ID," Marcus said, his voice steady, reciting the law he knew well. "Unless you are detaining me for a suspicion of a crime, I am not required to identify myself. This is a consensual encounter, officer. Or am I under arrest?" Vance hated that question. Am I under arrest? It was the question of someone who knew their rights. It infuriated him. You are being detained for investigation of trespassing, Vance lied. So yes, give me your ID. Trespassing implies I don't have permission to be here, Marcus said. I entered a business open to the public. I purchased goods. I have a receipt. I have not caused a disturbance until you walked up here. The manager revoked your permission. That makes it trespassing. ID. Now. I'm not giving you my wallet, Marcus said. He knew that once the ID was in the officer's hand, the power dynamic shifted. He also knew that he was dealing with a bully, and I'm not leaving until my transport gets here. Vance stepped closer, invading Marcus's personal space. He placed a hand on his taser, a subtle threat that wasn't lost on anyone in the room. Sir, I am not going to ask you again. You are making a scene. I'm sitting down, Marcus said, gesturing to the silent room. You're the one shouting. You're the one making a scene. A woman at a nearby table pulled out her phone. Then a teenager in the booth behind Marcus did the same. The cameras were rolling. Vance saw them, but he was too far gone. He had committed to the path of dominance. To back down now would be to admit defeat in front of an audience. Stand up, Vance barked. Get up on your feet. I told you, Marcus said, pointing to his leg under the table. I'm disabled. It takes me a minute. I don't care. Get up. Marcus reached for his cane. It was a sturdy piece of hickory he'd carved himself. He needed it to leverage himself up, especially with the swelling in his stump. As Marcus's hand closed around the handle of the cane, Vance reacted on instinct. Bad instinct. He saw a weapon. He saw resistance. Drop it, Vance shouted. It's my cane, Marcus said, bewildered. I need it to stand. I said drop it. Vance didn't wait. He kicked out with his boot striking the cane. It clattered across the floor, sliding under a table 10 feet away. The sound of the wood hitting the tile was like a gunshot in the quiet restaurant. Hey, a customer yelled from the back. He needs that. Marcus looked at his cane, then up at Vance. His eyes went cold. You shouldn't have done that, officer. Stand up! Vance screamed, grabbing Marcus by the collar of his field jacket. I'm trying to tell you I have a prosthetic leg, Marcus shouted back, his voice finally rising. I can't just pop up like a jack-in-the-box. Stop resisting! Vance yelled, utilizing the phrase that police are trained to shout for the benefit of bystanders and recordings regardless of whether resistance is actually occurring. Vance yanked Marcus. Marcus, unbalanced without his cane and with only one good leg, stumbled forward, crashing his chest against the table. His sweet tea toppled over, spilling ice and brown liquid all over his lap and the seat. Look what you did, Vance shouted, twisting the narrative instantly. You're under arrest for disorderly conduct and resisting an officer. The scene descended into chaos. He's an amputee, you idiot, a man in a hard hat yelled, standing up from his lunch. Let him go. Vance ignored the crowd. He was in the tunnel now. He grabbed Marcus's left arm and twisted it behind his back. Marcus grunted in pain not from the arm but from the torque on his hips and his damaged leg. I am not resisting, Marcus said through gritted teeth, his face pressed against the vinyl booth. I am complying. Do not hurt my leg. Give me your other arm. Vance panted, wrestling with a man who wasn't fighting back. Marcus slowly moved his right arm behind his back. He had been trained to kill men with his bare hands. He could have snapped Vance's wrist in 3 seconds, but he knew that if he did, he would die in this burger joint. So he submitted. He let this boy, this child with a badge, manhandle him. Vance slapped the cuffs on. He tightened them hard, too hard. The ratchet sound of the metal teeth locking was sickeningly loud. Get up, Vance commanded, hauling Marcus up by his cuffed arms. Marcus cried out. The pain in his stump was blinding. Without his cane, he couldn't balance. He wobbled, his prosthetic leg dragging slightly. Walk. Vance shoved him toward the door. My cane, Marcus gasped. I need my cane." "You don't need a weapon," Vance sneered. "It's a medical device." The cashier, Linda, screamed. She ran out from behind the counter, grabbed the cane from under the table, and tried to hand it to Vance. "Take his cane! He can't walk!" Vance snatched the cane from her hand and threw it toward the door. "Back off, or you're next for obstruction." Brad, the manager, stood by the soda fountain, his face pale. This wasn't what he had imagined. He wanted the guy gone, not a riot. The customers were standing up, phones held high, recording everything. "Officer, he's disabled!" someone shouted. "This is police brutality." "He didn't do anything." Vance marched Marcus through the gauntlet of cameras. Marcus hopped on his good leg, dragging the prosthetic sweat pouring down his face from the exertion and pain. He kept his head high, staring straight ahead. He was a warrior. He would not give this officer the satisfaction of seeing him break. They burst out into the hot afternoon sun. Vance shoved Marcus against the side of the cruiser. "Spread your legs," Vance ordered. "I can't," Marcus said, articulating every syllable. "One of them is plastic." Vance kicked Marcus's feet apart. Marcus crumbled. He slid down the side of the car, hitting the pavement hard. His prosthetic leg twisted at an unnatural angle because the knee joint had locked. "Stop!" A woman on the sidewalk screamed. Vance looked down, realizing for the first time that the resistance was gravity. He saw the metal hinge of the prosthetic visible where Marcus's pant leg had ridden up. For a split second, doubt flickered in Vance's eyes, but he squashed it. He hauled Marcus up by the armpits, dragging him like a sack of flour, and stuffed him into the back of the cruiser. Marcus had to contort his body to fit his stiff leg into the cramped space. Vance slammed the door. The thud felt final. He walked around to the driver's seat, panting, adrenaline coursing through him. He felt powerful. He had won. He had cleared the scene. He didn't see Linda running out of the store holding Marcus's wallet, which had fallen out of his pocket during the scuffle. She tried to wave at the car, but Vance flipped on his siren and peeled away, leaving the cane and the wallet behind. Wait. No. The wallet was in Marcus's back pocket. No, Vance hadn't searched him yet. That was a violation of procedure, too. Vance hadn't even patted him down for weapons. He was so focused on the dominance display, he forgot basic officer safety. Actually, Marcus had the wallet. It was in his front pocket. Vance hadn't touched it. As Vance drove away, he glanced in the mirror. "You should have just showed me the ID, buddy. Could have saved yourself a lot of trouble." Marcus sat in the back, leaning his head against the plexiglass. He closed his eyes. He wasn't thinking about the pain. He was thinking about the number of stars on the shoulder of the man he was going to call as soon as he got his one phone call. The drive to the 4th precinct took 15 minutes. Vance played the radio loud, some aggressive talk radio show trying to drown out the silence from the back seat. He expected the prisoner to be cursing, pleading, or banging on the glass. That's what the drunks usually did. But Marcus Thorne was silent. He was practicing tactical breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. He needed to lower his heart rate. He needed to be lucid. When they pulled into the sally port of the station, the garage door rumbling shut behind them, the environment changed. This was the belly of the beast. Vance pulled Marcus out of the car. Marcus stumbled again, his leg nearly giving out. "Quit the act," Vance muttered, though with less conviction this time. He had seen the metal leg. He knew it was real, but he had to maintain the frame that Marcus was the aggressor. They walked into the booking area. The smell of bleach and stale coffee hung in the air. Behind the high desk sat Sergeant Thomas Miller. Sergeant Miller was 58 years old. He was a Marine Corps veteran of Desert Storm. He had been on the force for 30 years. He had seen everything. He was the kind of cop who knew the name of every shopkeeper in his district. He was counting the days to retirement, but he still cared about the job. Miller looked up from his paperwork as Vance dragged Marcus in. He saw the handcuffs. He saw the limp. He saw the military haircut. He saw the calm, focused eyes of the prisoner, and then he looked closer. Miller stood up slowly. He walked around the desk. "Vance." Miller said, his voice low and dangerous. "What do you have here?" "Trespassing, disorderly conduct, resisting arrest," Vance recited, puffing his chest. "Refused to leave Liberty Burger. Refused ID. Caused a scene." Miller ignored Vance. He looked at Marcus. He looked at the way Marcus stood weight on the left leg, favoring the right. He looked at the 101st Airborne hat that had somehow stayed on Marcus's head. "Sir," Miller said to Marcus, "are you injured?" "My prosthetic is damaged, Sergeant," Marcus replied. His voice was calm, respectful. "And your officer kicked my cane away. I don't have it." Miller's head snapped toward Vance. "You kicked his cane. He was brandishing it," Vance said defensively. "I secured the scene." "You arrested a one-legged man for trespassing at a burger joint?" Miller asked, incredulous. "He refused to ID," Vance said. "He was non-compliant." Miller turned back to Marcus. "Sir, I'm going to take these cuffs off. I need you to keep your hands visible." "Can you do that?" "Yes, Sergeant." "Sarge, you can't." Vance started. "Shut your mouth, Vance," Miller snapped. It was the kind of command that stopped the room. The other officers in the booking area stopped what they were doing to watch. Miller unlocked the cuffs. Marcus rubbed his wrists. The skin was broken and bleeding where the metal had dug in. "Do you have identification on you, sir?" Miller asked. "Front right pocket," Marcus said. "I couldn't get to it before he grabbed me." "May I?" Miller asked. "Go ahead." Miller reached into Marcus's pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. He opened it. The first thing he saw was the driver's license. Marcus Elias Thorne. The second thing he saw was the Department of Defense retired identification card. Rank Master Sergeant E8. The third thing he saw was a folded laminated card tucked in the back. A card that Miller recognized immediately because he had seen one only a few times in his career. It was a high-level security clearance access card for the Pentagon, where Marcus worked as a civilian consultant on logistics. And behind that, a VA medical alert card. Amputee. PTSD. TBI. Miller looked at the ID. Then he looked at Marcus. Then he looked at the Silver Star lapel pin on Marcus's field jacket that he had missed earlier. Miller closed the wallet. He took a deep breath. He felt a pit in his stomach the size of a bowling ball. He turned to Vance. He held the wallet up. "Do you know who this is?" Miller whispered. "Some vagrant who wouldn't listen." Vance scoffed, though he was sweating now. "This is Master Sergeant Marcus Thorne," Miller said, his voice rising with every word. "Silver Star recipient. Retired. He consults for the Joint Chiefs. And you arrested him for eating a hamburger." The room went deathly silent. Vance's face went from flush to pale in the span of a heartbeat. He didn't show me the ID. If he had just showed me—" "You didn't ask him who he was," Miller roared. "You asked him to comply with your ego. You kicked a cripple's cane. You dragged a decorated veteran out of a restaurant like a dog." "He was resisting," Vance pleaded, looking around for support from the other officers. Nobody met his eyes. They were all staring at the floor or busy with sudden paperwork. They knew a career death when they saw one. "Captain Reynolds," Miller shouted toward the back office. "Get out here now." Captain Reynolds, the watch commander, burst out of his office. "What is going on? I can hear you in the parking lot." "Officer Vance has just arrested a disabled war hero for trespassing while waiting for his medical transport," Miller said, handing the wallet to the captain. "And he used force, injured the suspect." Captain Reynolds looked at the ID. He looked at Marcus, who was leaning against the counter to stay upright. "Mr. Thorne," Reynolds said, his tone shifting instantly to damage control. "I am Captain Reynolds. I need to apologize immediately. Are you okay? Do you need a medic? I need my cane, Marcus said simply. And I need to make a phone call. My transport is going to miss me, and I have a meeting with General Holloway's staff on Thursday that I need to reschedule if I'm going to be in jail. General Holloway. The name hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Reynolds turned to Vance. Badge and gun. On the desk. Now. Captain, I followed procedure. Vance stammered. The manager called. He said, I don't care what the manager said, Reynolds barked. Reynolds, you have eyes. You have a brain. You are supposed to de-escalate. You assaulted a disabled man. Give me the badge. Vance's hands shook as he unclipped his holster. He placed his Glock on the counter. Then he unpinned his badge. The metal clinked against the formica. It was the sound of a door slamming shut on his life. Go to the conference room and sit there, Reynolds ordered. Don't talk to anyone. Don't touch your phone. Union rep is on the way. You're going to need him. Vance walked away stripped of his gear, looking small. He looked back at Marcus once. Marcus didn't look back. He was looking at Sergeant Miller. Thank you, Sergeant, Marcus said quietly, for treating me like a man. I'm sorry, Top, Miller said, using the respectful term for a master sergeant. I'm so sorry. Not your fault, Marcus said. But you got a problem in this house. You know that. I know, Miller said. We're going to fix it. Within the hour, the video from the restaurant hit TikTok, then Twitter, then the local news. The footage was damning. It showed everything. The calm eating, the aggressive entry, the kick of the cane, the brutal handling of the arrest, the crowd screaming, "He's disabled!" The narrative Vance had tried to build, the dangerous vagrant, crumbled instantly under the weight of high-definition video evidence. By 3 p.m., the mayor was on the phone with the police chief. By 4 p.m., protesters were gathering outside Liberty Burger. By 5 p.m., Marcus Thorne walked out of the precinct, his cane retrieved by an officer sent specifically to get it in hand, flanked by his lawyer. He didn't say a word to the press. He didn't have to. The limp said everything. The fallout was swift, brutal, and expensive. Officer Kyle Vance was fired 3 weeks later. The internal investigation found that he had violated 14 separate departmental policies, including unlawful detention, excessive use of force, failure to provide medical assistance, and conduct unbecoming. But firing wasn't the end of it. The district attorney, under immense public pressure, charged Vance with assault and battery and deprivation of rights under color of law. He pleaded guilty to avoid jail time, receiving probation, and a permanent ban from working in law enforcement anywhere in the United States. He is now working in a warehouse, loading boxes, a job where he has no authority over anyone. Brad Miller, the manager at Liberty Burger, was terminated the next morning. The corporate headquarters issued a statement condemning his bias and lack of judgment. The franchise owner was forced to sell the location after weeks of boycotts drove revenue to zero. Brad's name is now permanently attached to the incident online. A quick Google search ensures he hasn't been hired in a management position since. The city of Richmond didn't even try to fight the lawsuit. Marcus Thorne's civil rights attorney laid out the case false arrest assault on a disabled person, emotional distress, and violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The city settled for $6.5 million. It was one of the largest settlements in the department's history. But the money didn't fix Marcus's leg. The torque from the arrest had damaged the interface of his stump, requiring another surgery and 6 more months of rehab. The money didn't fix the humiliation of being dragged out of a restaurant in his own hometown. Marcus donated $1 million of the settlement to the local VA hospital to improve their prosthetic clinic. He used another chunk to start a legal defense fund for veterans mistreated by police. 6 months later, Marcus returned to Liberty Burger, not the one on Broad Street that one had closed down. He went to a different one across town. He walked in with his cane. He ordered a number 4 with a sweet tea. He sat in a booth. He placed his receipt on the table. A young officer walked in to get a coffee. He saw Marcus. He saw the cane. He saw the 101st Airborne hat. The officer walked over. Marcus tensed up his hand, gripping the cane. "Excuse me, sir," the young officer said. Marcus looked up, ready for the fight. "I just wanted to say thank you for your service," the officer said. "And I'm sorry about what happened to you. We're trying to be better." Marcus looked at the kid. He saw sincerity. He nodded slowly. "Just do the job right, son," Marcus said. "That's all we ask. Just do the job right." "Yes, sir." The officer walked away. Marcus took a sip of his tea. It tasted sweet. This story isn't just about one bad apple. It's about a system that allowed a man with 14 complaints to keep a badge. It's about a culture that teaches managers that a black man sitting quietly is a threat, but a white man shouting orders is a hero. It's about the invisible scars our veterans carry and how quickly we forget their sacrifice when they don't fit the image we want to see. Marcus Thorne fought for freedom in foreign lands, only to have it stripped away in a burger joint in Virginia. He won his case, but how many others lose theirs because they don't have a security clearance or a silver star? How many people are dragged out, humiliated, and charged because an officer had a bad day, and a God-complex justice was served for Marcus, but the cost was high? And it begs the question, why does it take a viral video and a $6, $5 million check for us to treat people with basic human dignity? What do you think? Should police officers carry personal liability insurance so taxpayers aren't footing the bill for their misconduct? If you saw this happening in a restaurant, would you have intervened like the customers in this story, or would you have stayed back? Do we truly respect our veterans, or do we only respect the idea of them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe in accountability, share this story. Let's make sure everyone knows that the Constitution applies to everyone everywhere, every time. Thanks for reading.
This briefing is now complete. For more factual case reviews, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching Bodycam Incident Reports.